right, here we go. It's great to have you here on the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast, here exclusively on the Grid Network. And this is one of my favorite shows that we do every year, just because, like, I'd be lying if I said I didn't Google some free agency predictions just about every day, just to see what's going on. I'm a fiend for baseball news. And it's about that time of year. We're a little early still. It's still before Thanksgiving. We're not even at the winter meetings yet, and judging by how baseball off seasons go, nothing seems to happen in a hurry. So, but it's great to have you here. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown. It's been a while since we've been on the air, Dalton, but you're, again, back-to-back champs. I'm still sure you're riding the high at this point, even though we're maybe fully entrenched into college football and NFL football. But how you feeling, my friend?
Yeah, feeling good. I mean, obviously, we spoke after the World Series and, still kind of in disbelief at how that all went down. It doesn't, I don't know. It hardly feels real the way Game 6 and Game 7 went. You look back at it from like a 30,000-foot view, and it's like, well, the Dodgers went back to back. That's awesome. I love that. It's not all that surprising given the talent, but you look at how they did it, and it's still just like, oh my God. I mean, we stole it. But yeah, it was. It's been a ton of fun just to enjoy all the content that comes out of winning a World Series. The pure, just like, I don't know, the easy breathing afterward. It's just, yeah, it's been great. And the nice thing for the Dodgers is, like, this window doesn't seem to be closing next year or probably the year after. We'll see once we start getting 2028, 2029, you're going to have some aging pieces. They'll have some decisions to make. And, but the thing is, they've been through that already within this now close to 15-year window and have made good decisions and had it continue. So I don't have any reason to believe that the window closes really ever, which is fun. So really excited about that. Excited about Andrew Friedman and Farhan Zaidi doing some work with the Lakers now too. Curious to see what comes out of that for them. The Rams currently hold the number 1 seed and are the betting favorite to win the Super Bowl. Duke is 7-0 and looks good. Life is pretty good to be a sports fan as me right now.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, given how good the Rams are too. But again, one of my favorite episodes that we do every single year, where we make predictions on the upcoming MLB free agents for this offseason. We'll be making our predictions to where they will land, and we'll see if any of them surprise you. We'll be covering the top 20 free agents. Actually, it'll be 21. We briefly added a name to the list sort of late, but we're going to be doing the top 21. See, it's, they can drink now. The top 21 MLB free agents. Before we do that, Dalton, though, I do want to kind of throw this out there. If you're a Yankee fan today, I just have like a quick message for you, okay, as a fellow Yankee fan. And we're not going to spend too much time on this, but Hal Steinbrenner met with the media today, and a lot of people are kind of taken aback about the comments about him essentially saying that it is not fair to say that the Yankees have turned a profit. And while that is like unsettling for your owner to say, especially if you're the owner of the Yankees, I just want to kind of open everybody's eyes into what the Yankees have kind of turned into. The Yankees payroll was over $300 million last year. They were one of three teams to have that, right? It was the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Mets, and that's it. And I'm not going to be somebody that apologizes for Hal Steinbrenner. I've had criticisms of him. I've had criticisms of Brian Cashman. I've had criticisms of the Yankee organization up and down, all the way down to the players. Okay. Here's the thing. It's really hard to complain as a Yankee fan when your payroll is upwards of over $300 million in top 2 or 3 in the sport every single season. It's really hard to complain. Okay. If you're a Pirates fan, if you're a Milwaukee Brewers fan or something like that, and your payroll sits at anywhere between 50 million and 150 million every year, then you've got a little bit of a gripe. I get that. Okay. But this is not the same thing. I am of the belief that if I could have it perfect, we would sign Kyle Tucker and sign Cody Bellinger back and go bring in Tatsuya Imai from Japan and just create this massive thing that the Dodgers perceptively have kind of done. The Yankees are not in a position where that solves all of their problems. It just doesn't. A $350 million payroll should win you games. And somehow it comes up short. Why? Do you think it's because Max Fried and Cody Bellinger and all the trying to go after Juan Soto for that amount of money? Do you think that was the issue? Or do you think that starting Anthony Volpe as a top 3 prospect in all of baseball, or a former top 3 prospect in all of baseball, starting him at shortstop every day was the problem? Or do you think that having Austin Wells hit around 200 the rest, for the last 2 years is the issue? The catastrophic failure that was the Baby Bombers over the last decade. Okay, what do you think is more of the problem? Because I tend to believe that the Yankees do spend money, and sometimes I do disagree with how they spend money. But the answer, the point blank being, they do spend it.
Yeah, I mean, look,
issues in this organization than just Hal Steinbrenner not being able to go the extra mile of spending money in the areas in which the organization has failed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Yankees' issue is a lack of spending money. I do think those comments are probably him softening the blow for Yankees fans that he's probably not going to spend quite the way they want to this winter. And in that sense, I think they do hold some level of weight. That tells me that the Yankees' payroll probably shrinks, which is a real thing that's notable and worth discussing. But generally, if you're asking me, hey, what is the Yankees' actual issue? Yeah, I mean, of course, it's not a lack of paying for talent, right? It's player development, it's culture, it's all the things that we discussed ad nauseum during the season. A lot of which to me isn't necessarily going to change without a managerial change, but we'll have plenty of time to talk more about that.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm sure as the offseason goes on, we'll touch on those things as well. Also, before we get to predictions, I want to quickly touch on the 2 trades that happened over the past week or so. We talked about this a little bit pre-show, Dalton, and it was kind of funny, your reaction, where we saw the trade yesterday between the Rangers and the Mets, right? Brandon Nimmo heading over to Texas for Marcus Semien straight up. Brandon Nimmo's going to be turning 33 in this upcoming season, had a 760 OPS last year. Marcus Semien at about a 660 OPS last year, and he just turned 35. So a lot of Met fans are upset. And I haven't heard anything from Ranger fans because it's been, the overwhelming upsetness from Mets fans that's been clogging up all the airspace. But your reaction to this trade kind of surprised me a bit in the fact of that was kind of,
I mean, it's just not it's not a very consequential move. It's just not. I mean, you kind of said it best. These are both guys getting into their mid-30s. I mean, sure, I think Nimmo had a better year than Semien last year. I can understand why the Mets feel like second base is a position that they want to be better at. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just neither team got better or got worse in the deal. It's kind of just let's just toss a couple veterans over the fence at each other. I don't know. It didn't elicit much of a reaction for me. I was kind of just all right.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think we were just talking about Hal Steinbrenner, and this kind of brings up the question of, like, and this is really what I've heard the most, is, are the Mets, because Brandon Nimmo was so well liked in the Mets organization, right? He was viewed in a lot of ways as a clubhouse favorite, kind of a cog in what they do as an organization. Does that sort of lead them into a path of, well, if they don't really care about for the lack of a better term, loyalty to Brandon Nimmo, right? Would they then be more comfortable losing Pete Alonso in free agency or losing Edwin Diaz in free agency? Now, I think personally it's a little bit of a stretch, but I did think it was interesting. I did not think that this was a trade that was on anybody's radar. And I don't know.
Yeah,
this is a wait and see how it plays out deal. If Marcus Semien can somehow dial it back a couple of years, I think Met fans are going to love him.
Yeah. So, I just think that, I'll put it this way. Like, I don't think it's a great situation for Semien. Like, you're going from Texas, where you have a lot less pressure on you to figure it out, to now New York, where very, very quickly, if he doesn't figure it out, he's going to hear boos.
He's already hearing boos.
Like, I don't know. I don't think it's a great situation for him. Brandon Nimmo is going into one of the worst hitters parks in baseball. I guess in theory, he can provide some good outfield defense for them, especially with them non-tendering Adolis Garcia. But I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Like it's one of those trades that when I saw it, and you're gonna hate me for this, but when the trade came across my phone, I was on the golf course yesterday, and I was like, we're gonna have to talk about this tomorrow night, and I just don't think this matters very much. I'm like, I just don't think this trade matters very much, and we're gonna have to talk about it. That was my honest first thought when I saw it.
Well, that's it. We kind of, we gave it a few minutes, and that's really it. There you go. It's over. Anyway, let's talk about the other one. And I'm not sure we didn't talk about this one at all. But this one kind of took me aback a little bit, only because, like, the Orioles seem to have given up on Grayson Rodriguez. And they pull in Taylor Ward, who's a quality right-handed bat in a lineup that needs a little bit more pop. So that was that also a straight up trade? I'm pretty sure it was, right? So Grayson Rodriguez goes from the Orioles to the Angels for Taylor Ward. Now, the main reason I found this interesting was the Orioles desperately need pitching. So their solution to that is to trade away one of their more promising young pitchers. So what did you make of that deal, Dalton? Grayson Rodriguez to the Angels, Taylor Ward to the Orioles.
The most interesting part of that deal is the Angels not doing a physical on Grayson Rodriguez, a guy who's like notoriously had tons of injury issues, and they trade for him without doing a physical for no reason. Like, there's no advantage that the Angels are gaining by foregoing a physical other than just being lazy. Like, it is so Angels. For Grayson Rodriguez, you go from one organization that can't develop pitching to an organization that doesn't do anything right. It sucks for him. For Taylor Ward, like, I guess you're going into a better lineup, but you're going into a place where it's really hard to hit homers as a righty. I don't know.
Dead straight away left field in Camden Yards is like 410 feet.
Yeah.
Like, it's horrible.
I think this deal for me is one where, like, it's more interesting than Nimmo and Semien, because I think these two players are, younger and more impactful. But I think the Angels are going to be a 75 win team, and I think the Orioles are going to be an 84 win team. And I don't think either one of those things changed a ton. I guess for the Orioles, you're just leaning into what you do reasonably well, which is hitting. And if you're the Angels, look, Grayson Rodriguez, if he's healthy and can post, is awesome. Like, I think he can have a very good career. But not doing a physical and just agreeing to that trade is crazy, and you gain no advantage from it. It's just, it's so weird.
Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. I again, my whole thing is that the Orioles are a team that are going to be on the hunt for pitching, I think, this offseason, and we'll get into that in a minute. But and they trade away one of their, I mean, Grayson Rodriguez, injuries bar none, he's 26 years old and his stuff is pretty nasty. So like they're giving up on that kid relatively early, only his second year in the big leagues. So, okay. Anywho, we're done with trades. We're done with all of the Hal Steinbrenner bullshit. Let's talk about, let's make some predictions, Dalton. So, I want to talk about the smaller guys first, because I think that's what we did last year. I think we predicted Juan Soto last.
Yeah, we'll go bottom to top. I'm good with that.
We'll go bottom to top. So, bottom of the list here. Let's start with one of the most, I don't know, would you call him maybe one of the most accurately understood or one of the most misunderstood baseball players in Major League Baseball, in Luis Arias, who is a contact merchant, kind of a singles guy. And I don't expect his market to be very big, but Dalton, how do we feel right now about Luis Arias and his market and where he could land?
Yeah. So Luis Arias, if he doesn't hit like 320, is not that valuable of a player. And last year he didn't hit 320. And so very quickly, the rest of his game, all of which is below average, gets exposed. I think that's why the market for him is not very large. I see two potential landing spots for him. They're very different from one another. One of them would be much more entertaining to me than the other, but I think the other one is much more likely. My official prediction for Luis Arias is that it goes back for the Padres. I think the Padres like him. I think he likes being there. And I think that both sides are somewhat motivated to make that happen. And I don't think it would cost a ton of money. The most entertaining place for him to go, and something that I have actually seen a couple people put some smoke around, would be Luis Arias going to the Rockies.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Luis Arias in Colorado would be amazing. Like, the amount of outfield grass for him to just tap balls to. I think he might hit 360 at Coors Field on a team that wins 52 games. So that would be very entertaining. But my official prediction on him is Padres. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't hate that prediction. I think that that's certainly a possibility. Luis Arias kind of coming off a little bit of a down year, if you call it, last year. 719 OPS. He hit 292, which is a bit low for his standards over the past couple of years. Because they just traded Marcus Semien, I have him going to the Rangers. And I think that could be just sort of like a cheapish sort of deal for them. Put another rotational infielder in. He doesn't provide much defensively. Yeah, obviously you and I know that. So I think Luis Arias could find a bit of a home in Texas on a one-year deal, add a little bit more to that lineup. They really struggled offensively last year, and it's just kind of an offense-only sort of player. I think they could kind of work him into that lineup. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it if part of how I go about this is I have kind of a directional theory on each team, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And my general directional thought with Texas is I think they're tearing it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think they're – well, here's the thing. Like, I think they could tear it down. I think that if they're looking to cut payroll, like there were so many people that were talking about the Rangers trading Corey Seager, right?
It still might happen.
And it might. It certainly might. If they do, that's officially them completely going downhill. But when they traded Marcus Semien, they brought in Brandon Nimmo, who's signed to a relatively big contract all the way into like 2031. Like, Brandon Nimmo's not a super cheap player either. So I sort of felt that was more of a retool rather than a getting rid of a massive contract and getting nothing in return sort of deal.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when you're just non-tendering Adolis Garcia and you're putting it out there into the atmosphere that you're open to trading Seager, like you're not doing those things to me if you're focused on winning, is my thought. But
Sure.
we'll see.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's move to the next guy on our list. Let's talk about Merrill Kelly. Again, this is our first starter that we're talking about here. Could be solid as a middle of the rotation arm. What do you think, Dalton?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, part of my theory is that I don't have the Rangers signing anybody on this list.
Yeah.
And so because of that, to me, back to Arizona makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he is familiar there. I think he'd be happy there. I see Tristan in the comments saying Guardians. That actually is a move I could see the Guardians making. Like, I could see them getting involved on a middle of the rotation guy like him.
Yeah.
But I just think he's comfortable in Arizona and would be happy to go back to Arizona. And I think that they would be happy to have him back.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that's more than a possibility. So here's the thing with Merrill Kelly for me. Merrill Kelly, I think, is part of the very active Mets offseason. I think this could be a spot where he lands. This is not the large pitching move that I think the Mets will make, but I do think that they're going to be very active in adding starting pitching. And Merrill Kelly, I think, is somebody that, like, along with what I think they're going to do later in this list, it kind of ties together. I think Merrill Kelly is the cheaper, shorter term pitching lab option that they can bring in. And I think the Mets would be willing to give him a little bit more than some of these other teams in that particular market, right? Because I don't think Merrill Kelly's going to command a super big contract. He's going to be in the 1-2 year, 15 million-ish per year range, I would imagine. So that's what I think happens. So Merrill Kelly, for me, is part of he's kind of a start to the Mets' big offseason for me.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I am chuckling to myself at imagining Mets fans' reactions if that's a move that they make like early in the offseason before they because it would just feel very like it feels very Sean Manaea. It feels very
Frankie Montas, like
Frankie Montas, Griffin Canning, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 3.52 ERA for Merrill Kelly last year. He was 12-9 between Arizona and Texas, 184 innings pitched. I mean, listen, he's a reliable middle of the rotation arm. He's going to be turning next year's going to be his age 37 season. So he's not a spring chicken anymore.
That's part of why I like Arizona for him is I just feel like he wants to go somewhere and just finish out his career comfortably. But yeah, I don't know. Who knows?
Well, we'll see. Merrill Kelly, for me to the Mets, for Dalton, he goes back to the Diamondbacks. Let's go back to the position players. Let's talk about JT Realmuto. So what do we think for him, Dalton? Well, obviously, the top catcher on the market. Getting into his older years now, he isn't what he once was. What do you think about for him?
Yeah, when I think of JT Realmuto heading into 2026, I hear big name, a lot of cachet with the name, declining returns, but will still demand some money on the open market. And I think about what kind of teams like to go after big names that are past their moment. I think the Padres are a landing spot that just kind of makes sense for me for Realmuto. I think they're a team that is going to be on them. I'll put it this way. I think they like Freddie Fermin. I'm not sure if they like Freddie Fermin to give him the reins all the time. Yeah. And I think Realmuto can mix in for them a little bit at first, a little bit behind the plate, a little bit at DH. And it feels like the kind of just like name they can put up in lights that they want to sign that might not go so great. But yeah.
Yeah. See, like, this is the if you remember what I did last year, I was very boring in my predictions, and I didn't mean to be, but I was very boring in my prediction because I had a lot of players going back. Here's the first player I have going back, JT Realmuto. I think he does go back to the Phillies.
I think that's the most likely thing, to be clear.
I think he probably goes back to the Phillies. Obviously not on a big deal, but again, I think he's comfortable there. I think he likes the environment there. I think the Phillies really like him. There's no reason there's no like automatic replacement for him in Philadelphia yet, as far as I'm concerned. So
Yeah.
I think Real Muto still fits with what the Phillies can do. This is a team that still is trying to win. They're obviously getting very, very old pretty quickly. But I think Real Muto still fits in Philadelphia right now. So by only a 700 OPS last year, he had 12 home runs in 134 games. And it has been sort of diminishing year after year. I mean, he was around an 820 OPS player for a good portion of his career, and that just has not been the case over the last season or two.
I also, Mike, another team that like there are a couple teams that have said there are a couple teams that never spent money that have said they might spend a little bit of money. This is the kind of player I could see that happening with. Like, I could see him on a 2-year deal in Pittsburgh too.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
that certainly, yeah. For something like that, a little bit of a sell ticket name somewhere. It's possible. Listen, I've seen, and I don't know that they would do this, but I've seen a lot of people throw out going back to the Marlins for that exact reason, right? So
the only reason that because I thought of both the Marlins and the Pirates in that category, right? Because there's been a lot of smoke the last couple of days about how those two teams are going to spend a little bit of money this offseason.
That right, it's been the talk of the town.
But I think the Marlins really like Augustin Ramirez, like, and I do too. But I think they really like him.
I do too. The only concern, the only thing that I would say to that is that, like, I don't know that the Marlins like him defensively and as an everyday catcher.
Yeah.
Like Augustin Ramirez it could be an offensive machine, but he's terrible.
There's a little bit of Gary Sanchez to it. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So we'll see. Let's move on to our next name. Let's go to Eugenio Suarez. It's interesting. I'll spoil mine a little bit. I'm not going to give it away. I'll let you go first, obviously, Dalton, but I do not think this is a scenario where he returns to Seattle. Was obviously much better in Arizona last year than he was for the Mariners. Where do you think he goes this winter? I'm sorry.
My initial instinct was that he goes back to Seattle, but I don't think that's not where I landed. I had him going to the Yankees. I think he's been connected to the Yankees a few different ways. Like, I think it's something that we've heard around the media around the trade deadline last year, and I think the Yankees really want him. That's just something that I think.
That's interesting.
And I think in general, I could just see him in pinstripes. Like, I could see that. I just feel it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's certainly an element to this that is like throwing darts ish, right? Just basing things off feeling. There is certainly something to that. I mean, I think it fits as a Yankee fan, right? I think it does fit as like a compliment to Ryan McMahon a little bit, right? McMahon is left-handed, very defense first. Eugenio Suarez is sort of the opposite. He's not a great defensive third baseman, but hits the piss out of the baseball. I think the Tigers nab him. Like, I think if he's going to go somewhere, there's going to be a bunch of suitors for him. I think the Red Sox could be interested in him. The Mariners, I do think, are somewhat of a possibility. I think he could end up in the Pirate-ish sort of realm in that aspect also. I also wouldn't rule out a reunion with the Diamondbacks, but I think the Tigers, they were in on Alex Bregman last year. I think they're probably going to be in on Alex Bregman again this year. Eugenio Suarez, I feel like, is somebody that's kind of been tied to that franchise for a while. I think that's something that could happen. I think the Tigers could use a little extra pop in that lineup. And they listen, the positional need is certainly there. So I think that there's something to be said about Suarez to the Tigers here.
Yeah, I can see it.
So, okay. So let's jump from one Suarez to another. Let's go to Robert Suarez because this is one of the top relievers on the market. I'm going to be, by the way, making my prediction here on the fly because I have not written this down. That's how late this came in. But Robert Suarez, again, one of the top relievers on the market. What do you think happens with him?
Yeah, the Dodgers are, I think, a logical fit for Robert Suarez. I think they've had to deal with him for a number of years, and the Dodgers have actually been one of the only teams that's hit him well. But I think he joins the pipeline behind Tanner Scott of dominant Padre reliever that goes to the Dodgers. So I think there's no big secret that the Dodgers are very much going to be in the closer market, and I think they take another shot with him. And the thing is, with his age, I don't think it has to be a long-term deal. I think they can probably, I don't know, at least I would think, get like a 3-year deal done with him.
Yeah. No, I think that's reasonable. I mean, I think Robert Suarez, I mean, he's getting older though, isn't he? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
he's old.
yeah. So he's 34. He's going to be turning 35. Yeah. Electric stuff, no doubt about it. 2.97 ERA last year. He had 40 saves last year. 75 strikeouts in just under 70 innings. This is just like my on the fly, based on what I already have, my kind of on the fly prediction here. How about the Toronto Blue Jays? The Blue Jays are going to have money to spend, right? I think one of their big priorities, obviously, is going to be bringing back Bo Bichette. But I think they need a little bit more help in the back of that bullpen. If they're going to try and rely more on Jeff Hoffman to get saves for them, I think that could end up biting them in the ass. Robert Suarez, to me, feels like obviously a bit more of a shorter term solution for a back end the bullpen role. I didn't have them nabbing really much of anything else at this point. So if this kind of makes sense to me, Robert Suarez to the Blue Jays.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yep. Let's go from another reliever to another reliever. Let's go to Devin Williams. Down year, to say the least, with the Yankees last year after trading for him. But I've seen so many people, including Yankee fans, that are not against them bringing him back, because a lot of people think that, listen, it might have just been a fluke. Like, we know what this guy's capable of, and he just didn't have it last year. What do you think about Devin Williams and where he could end up over this winter?
Yeah, he's one that I wrestled with a little bit. Ultimately, I landed on the Cubs. Like, I think he stays in a big market on a contending team. I don't think the Yankees want to bring him back, and I'm not sure if he would want to go back, just because it just felt like the juju was off, and I just feel like a change of scenery would probably be good. Mm-hmm. I think he's going to be asking for a lot of money, maybe a little bit more than the Dodgers want to give to a reliever.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Robert Suarez is maybe a little bit more their speed. And so to me, the Cubs, they feel like a team that's going to be in on bullpen arms. They need to make a splash on the pitching side. They know that. And I think he makes sense for them.
Yeah. So I did end up going with the Dodgers here for Devin Williams. I think that there's some real smoke behind this. I think the reality is that Devin Williams is one of these players that I think the Dodgers could probably get for relatively cheap. I really don't think that his market is going to be exploding. I think him, and like you said, I think about, Robert Suarez in that same breath. I think they're going to be around the same sort of market clip here, but I think Williams could end up being a little cheaper just because it's like, all right, you got to kind of prove it to me again. So I think there is a little bit of an element to that. I think the Dodgers obviously are going to look to address the bullpen at some point. I just think this is the match that they make. And Devin Williams, I think, ends up with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I think the Dodgers are going to end up with one of these names.
Yeah.
Between Devin Williams, Robert Suarez, and the next guy we're going to mention.
Yeah. So let's talk about I think it might be, pretty much a sure thing, the best reliever on the market, and that's Edwin Diaz. So let's talk about him. Listen, we've heard reports about him saying he wants something around like $100 million. Like he wants a large contract for a reliever. And it's hard to argue with him. I mean, he's been pretty dynamite for a good portion of his career. What do we think about the top closer on the market here, Dalton?
Yeah, I think he goes back to the Mets. I just don't think Steve Cohen lets him leave. I think he'll offer him enough money to keep him. And I think ultimately Diaz would like to be back. So, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's back to the Mets for him. I think there's too much of a relationship there. The fans love him, obviously, with the whatever the trumpet thing. I think like it's just kind of ingrained in the Mets culture. And if he's going to be asking for that much money, I think there's few teams in the league that are going to be willing to do that. The Mets might just do that. So I think there's, I think that would be, I can say pretty confidently that I'd be like 90% sure that Edwin Diaz goes back to the Mets.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're staying in the pitching side. Well, let's go to a starting pitcher where kind of like we talked about with Devin Williams about having a down year. Let's talk about Zach Gallen, because I think he's going to be one of the more fascinating names in this free agent class, just because, again, he's another one of these guys where we know what he's capable of, but what can somebody like, is somebody going to be willing to take the gamble that might be other than the Diamondbacks? What do you think, Dalton? Zach Gallen in this market?
Well, I mean, Zach Gallen, the last 2 months of the season was great. Like he turned it on and kind of already figured it out. So I do think he's going to garner quite a bit of interest. I a lot of this for me was kind of fitting puzzle pieces together as I went through these names.
Yeah.
And I landed on the Cubs for him. I think the Cubs are very much going to be in the market to get another potential frontline starting pitcher. I think between the uncertainty with Steele coming back from his injury, Shota Imanaga, kind of a weird, lukewarm, accepted the qualifying offer, but I don't know how they really feel there. Cade Horton looks great, but I think they want another arm to put next to those guys. And so I think Zach Gallen makes a lot of sense. I think the next name on this list would have also made a lot of sense. But I also just feel like I could see Zach Gallen in a Cubs uniform. Like some of these, I can just picture it, Mike. I don't know.
Well, right. That's part of the game that you play, right? You picture it and it makes sense. For me, Zach Gallen, here's my reasoning behind this. I have him going back to Arizona on maybe like a multi-year deal, but an option out after the first year, right? If Zach Gallen doesn't like what he sees in the market, and I have just a feeling that he's not gonna sign something super long term, I think it's possible that he goes back, tries to do it again, and then enters the free agency again next year and tries to sign something bigger then, right? He's 30 years old. He's going to be going into his age 30 season. So the potential is still out there for maybe a 6 or 7 year deal if he pitches really well again next year. So I think there's a possibility he goes back, shorter term deal, maybe like a 2 or 3 year contract, high AAV, option out after the first year, and then he re-enters it again, trying to aim for a bigger contract. I think that's a situation we could see Zach Gallen in. A bit boring, but here we go again.
No, I mean, I could see it. I wouldn't rule it out. Again, a lot of these starters, like it feels a little bit like we're playing a game of musical chairs. I think we have an idea of like what teams they're going to sign with generally, but not which ones are going to land in which specific spot.
Yeah. Let's go to a different one of my favorite starting pitchers in the world. Everybody knows how much I love this guy. Let's talk about Michael King. Now I'm gonna throw this out there and say that I think his market is going to be smaller than what I would have expected. I think there's going to be a lot of teams interested in him, but I don't think he's going to get the money that maybe we thought he could have when he entered free agency. I love Michael King, but where do you think he goes, Dalton?
This is another one that could land a lot of different places. I ended up with him in Houston with the Astros. I think they are one of these teams that's going to be in on a starter. I think he is kind of right there in like the middle of the market this offseason and fits well with kind of what they want to do. So yeah, I could see them letting Framber Valdez walk and instead signing Michael King and feeling good about it.
Yeah. Listen, the Astros are such a hard team for me to read right now, right? Because like I feel like that's a team that shouldn't let Framber Valdez walk. Like if they were truly trying to compete again, then keep Framber Valdez.
Yeah, I think Framber Valdez personality-wise is a bit of an odd duck from what I understand.
Yeah, he's had issues. You're right.
And I think they may have kind of worn thin with just dealing with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
is kind of my thought there. I think they want to let him go somewhere else.
Well,
as talented as he is.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think you definitely make a good point there. For me, and I hate to see this happen again because I love Michael King. I really, really do. But his career will begin to waste away with the Anaheim Angels. Like, I think the Angels will probably make one relatively solid sized move. I don't think they're going to go super big game hunting, but I do think the Angels make one legitimate sized signing, and it's going to be in the starting pitching market. And Michael King, I think, is the guy that becomes the victim of that signing. Stays on the West Coast. Listen, I would love for him to return to the Bronx. I would love it. But I think the reality is that he's going to find a bigger deal elsewhere. Like you said, it's kind of playing musical chairs with a lot of these starting pitchers at this point. The Angels, I think, are the landing spot. They're going to go and get a starter of some magnitude, I think. Michael King, I think, is that guy. Unfortunately,
I can see it. I'll put it this way. I didn't pick the Angels to take anybody on this list.
Yeah.
But I'd be willing to bet they end up with somebody on this list just because that's what they do. They're just going to go sign one random guy.
That's right. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Is I think that they'll do something like that. The next three guys we talk about are going to be very, very interesting because I really think, like a lot of their markets we just don't know right now. But let's talk about the maybe the lowest profile Japanese import in Kazuma Okamoto. Let's talk about him a little bit. Now, again, you can make the argument that he's not as big of a free agent name as some of the guys we've mentioned already, but I think his market's going to be really interesting, and he could end up signing somewhere pretty obscure. What say you, Dalton? What do you think for Kazuma Okamoto?
Yeah, he is the lone player on this list that I have going to Miami with the Marlins.
Oh, wow. Okay. You and I are in the same thought process a little bit.
I think the Marlins are, I mean, look, corner infielder / outfielder, power bat, right? Bunch of 30 home run seasons overseas. I feel like they're looking for an infusion. I mean, because this is a guy who's going to be 30 when the season starts. He's not, he's right. This isn't Roki Sasaki or Yamamoto coming over there. Like, this is a veteran. I think this is the kind of piece that it makes sense for them to take a chance on. If he pans out and is a 25 to 35 home run guy, I think he's going to get paid less than what that should go for on the market. Mm-hmm. And I think that's exactly the kind of risk a team like the Marlins wants to be making. The Marlins quietly actually have a pretty decent young offensive core. Like, I think they're a team that is actually going to get better in 2026 if they make a few moves. I think this can make some sense for them. Yeah,
it really depends on what the Marlins decide to do with their pitching staff, right? Do they trade Sandy Alcantara? Do they trade Edward Cabrera? Like, do they kind of trade out of that mix and try to supplement a bunch of things? I do think that they're getting closer to winning, though. They really are. That's not a bad offensive group, like you said. You and I are kind of have the same-ish thought process. You have the Marlins. I have the Pirates. I think Okamoto could fit there. Like you said before, the Pirates and both of these teams really are going to be looking to potentially spend a little bit of money, right? This feels like it makes sense positionally for me. Like you said, a bit of a power-ish bat. I think he's a bit more well-rounded than Munetaka Murakami at this point, right? Murakami, I think, has higher upside, but Okamoto's a bit more established in who he is as a player. And I think the Pirates could like that. I think he's a guy that they could safely say, bring him in. He's got star potential, right? Because we don't know what he is. He could turn out to be anything. I think there's something to that. So I think Okamoto to the Pirates makes sense. That's kind of what I think happens with him, though. It won't be the Yankees. It won't be the Dodgers. Like, it won't be one of these super big market, big game hunting teams for me for Okamoto. I think he's going to land in one of these smaller-ish sort of places.
Yeah, I agree directionally. I for whatever reason, I tend to think a lot of these Japanese guys are going to end up on the coasts. Mm-hmm. I just do. It just feels more correct to me.
Yeah.
That's probably what keeps me away from this more than anything. But I mean, because I also consider the Giants for Okamoto.
Yeah.
Felt like it can make some sense. But yeah, I mean, Pirates, it fits the bill, right? I think this is one of those players that, smaller market teams are going to take a swing at.
Yeah. He'd have to play first base though with the Giants. He'd have to play.
I mean,
Chapman,
first base. He'd play first base, maybe a little bit of third base, a little bit of corner outfield. I think he'd just fit in where he fits in. I don't think they're signing him for his defense, right? I mean, like I think between Devers, Chapman, I think he spells those guys with days off here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I think he plays some outfield. I think he DHs some. They need bats, and I think that they just kind of figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's talk about maybe the second highest profile guy coming over from Japan. Let's talk about Tatsuya Imai. Listen, he's not Yamamoto, but there's a lot of people that like him, including me. I think his stuff is gross. I think he's a dog. He has made it known that he does not want to play for the Dodgers. He wants to beat the Dodgers. I kind of like that mindset. What do you think about Tatsuya Imai?
Yeah, I've changed the team that I have attached to him several times.
Yeah.
I think I've landed on the Mets for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think part of it is I think he goes somewhere in the National League because he's described this desire to compete against the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
He has said that he wants to go to a team that doesn't have other Japanese players, which rules out a couple of the other teams I was considering. So to me, when I put my puzzle together, Mets makes sense for him as a solid rotation ad. And I don't know, the Kodai Senga. I forgot about Kodai Senga when I was putting that together. So maybe not the Mets. I'm going to go Mets.
Okay. All right. Listen, you go Mets. I go Yankees. I think the Yankees are desperate to get back into the Japanese market, and I think this is going to be their way to do so. They have to figure out a way to get through the early months of the season in their rotation without giving Allen Winans starts. You know what I mean? They have to figure out a way to do that. I think this is a way for them to accomplish kill two birds with one stone. I've heard that they really, really like him. They're going to be aggressive in this sort of market for him. I think there is going to be a bidding war for him. He'll probably sign for a bit more expensive than what might be predicted for him. I think it's possible that Imai gets close to $200 million. It's going to be around that number. I think 6 years, 180-ish. I think it could be for him.
Wow. $30 million a year.
Yeah. Ooh. I think it's possible. I really do. I think the Mets are certainly a possibility depending on what they do with their pitching. I have the Mets addressing pitching a little bit elsewhere. So I think Imai ends up with the Yankees. I think this is going to be their big re-entrance into the Japanese market.
So I don't think it's a bad choice whatsoever. Just to give you a little look behind the curtain when I was making my list, I had Michael King to the Yankees. And then I got the quotes from Hal Steinbrenner.
Yeah.
And I said, nope, I'm only sending one player on this list to the Yankees.
I think I know. Suarez. What? Really? What? Okay. So we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Well, we did, right? We talked about Eugenio Suarez, right? And how I have him going to the Yankees. But
yes, right.
Me, he's the only name on this list I have going to the Yankees. I think the Yankees roll into next season with the mindset of healthy Garrett Cole alongside Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, Clark Schmidt, Luis Heel. I think that they feel pretty good about that as a rotation.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll see.
I'm sure you wouldn't be happy, but that's what I think happens.
No, I would not. You're right. But again, we'll see. It's interesting. But let's move to the next the last Japanese import that we're talking about. Let's talk about Munetaka Murakami. Listen, this was the big name heading into the offseason. I think there's been a lot of questions raised about him in the recent weeks. A lot of swing and miss in his game. Obviously, he's still young. He's 26 years old or so. Big time raw power. But a lot of strikeouts. Like this guy, he gets on base a bunch, but he strikes out a lot. What do we think about Munetaka Murakami? I like the spot I have for him, I think just totally makes sense. So I'm interested to hear what you say.
So I think this hinges on Rafi Devers becoming a full-time DH. Giants for me.
Okay.
Partially because I think the Giants have struggled to make these kinds of big-time signings, especially with offensive players.
Mm-hmm.
But I think San Francisco is a very appealing city to a Japanese player coming over. And I think he fits their lineup really well. I think you kind of put, the left-handed contingent of him, Jung-Hoo Lee, Rafi Devers, with, righties like Adames and Chapman. I think it gives them a really solid core to the lineup. The Giants have just been begging for power bats. And I think they got one in Devers, but I don't think they're satisfied. I think they want more. Mm-hmm. And again, I think you think of Murakami, he fits into that kind of triumvirate of corner infielders with Chapman and with Devers. I think they would prefer Devers to DH most of the time and have Murakami play first, but they can kind of move these guys around as needed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting. And Murakami is not a super plus defender at first base either, or third. Again, he can kind of play either corner, nothing particularly well, but he can play it. So it's interesting that you hear that you put in that sort of rotational vibe with him. I think he's a great fit for the San Diego Padres. I think this is going to be where they spend their money. Like I think
what money?
Well, that's true, but I think this is going to be where they kind of make their splash a bit. Makes sense for their lineup. They obviously struggled hitting homers last year, a lot of raw power. I think it's possible that Murakami gets less money than Imai. And I genuinely think that there's a lot of teams out there that have a lot of question marks. Like, I really am not sure that his market is going to be what we thought it was going to be months and months and months ago. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel that way. And he's not going to be he's not dealing with I don't think the Dodgers or the Yankees are going to be really interested in him. The Mets, I think, have an outside shot at being interested in him. So you're just dealing with teams that spend like a tier less money than those teams. I think the Padres could be that fit for them. I think he fits that lineup really well.
I don't think the Padres are going to be willing to give him what he's going to be asking for. I think the Padres, at some point, all this smoke around them being out of money and owing money and being bankrupt and all this, like at some point, there's got to be something behind it. Mm-hmm. I think that's part of why they've been so aggressive in the trade market. And I just think with the contract that they're sitting on with Bogarts, I don't see them doing it, but it is the Padres. I don't put anything past them.
Yeah. So if that's the case, right, does that leave open the possibility of guys like Bogarts or even guys like Tatis getting moved just to get off of that money?
Not unless it completely falls apart for the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
What I think the Padres do is they re-sign Arias. They go out and get a guy like Real Muto that's like marketable that they can stick in their lineup and see, look at how good this looks in a tweet. I think they do some of that. And then I think if they are a contender, you're going to see them trade whatever scraps are left in that farm system at this deadline, go balls to the wall again, and eventually AJ Preller is going to lose his job, and that's when they tear it down. That's what I think you'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. Definitely possible. All right, let's go back to the starting pitching market. Let's talk about Dylan Cease. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up again, sort of playing musical chairs a bit again with starting pitchers. But what do you think, Dalton? Dylan Cease now.
Yeah, this is one that, again, I could see going a lot of places, like you said. I think this is a spot with a team we haven't talked about yet. because they didn't contend in 2025 when everybody had high expectations for them, and that's the Braves.
Okay. Wow.
I think the Braves do not view themselves as what they were last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think they view themselves as what they had been for the 10 years before that. And I think when you start thinking about a rotation of Chris Sale, Dylan Cease, Spencer Strider, now Dylan Cease doesn't have to be your ace like he was in San Diego. He can be probably your number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then you still have Spencer Schwellenbach behind that before you start getting into, Waldrep and Reynaldo Lopez and who knows what else.
Right.
I think Atlanta sees what Philly's built. I think they see what the Mets have built, and they double down on pitching. I think Dylan Cease. I think where's Dylan Cease from? I want to say, let me check. Yeah, he's from Milton, Georgia. I just think it fits. I think he would love to be there.
Okay. Well, yeah, it certainly makes sense in that respect. For him to go to Atlanta, them trying to kind of get themselves back to the threat that they once were. This, I think, is where the Baltimore Orioles try to get back on the map a little bit here. They try to supplement their pitching. They obviously got something out of Trevor Rogers last year at the top of that rotation. I think it's possible that if you add Cease to this rotation, and you get some health, it actually becomes not terrible. There's, with Bradish and all of these guys, I think there's a real possibility that they could be solid. This is, I think, the Orioles, I don't want to say last ditch, but this is kind of their effort. I'm trying to come up with the right term. This is going to be one of the last things they do to try to make themselves contenders again before they start reevaluating what's working and what's not, right? Whether they sign Basayo to that contract. What does that mean for Adley Rutschman? Like, it becomes a lot of those conversations again. Dylan Cease, I think, becomes a little bit more of a, all right, let's try to right the ship a little bit, add a little bit more pitching, become more of a contender in this division. I think they're going to spend some money on pitching this offseason. I think Dylan Cease is where that goes.
I am not as convinced that the Orioles spend that kind of money, and I'm not convinced that Dylan Cease wants to go to Baltimore. But we'll see.
I mean, it's interesting. Baltimore's a pretty killer pitcher's park. So,
yeah, I mean, certainly to left field. I don't know. I just feel that Baltimore, they remind me a little bit of the Rangers, where it's like they kind of, I mean, they kind of came out and did their thing, and now I think they're kind of just like sitting back and reevaluating. So I don't have Baltimore signing any big free agents, but I have heard Dylan Cease's name connected to the Orioles. It wouldn't shock me.
Listen, we'll see if it happens. Like I said, it's a lot of this with starting pitchers is just kind of playing matchmaker. Yeah. Let's talk about Kyle Schwarber, who I heard today from Robert Murray that he's apparently going to have a large market.
Oh yeah.
That's what I keep hearing, is that Kyle Schwarber is going to do very well in free agency. What do you think, Dalton? I mean, this is not really a guy that you can play all that often defensively, but he's going to hit a bunch of bombs. What do you think about him?
Yeah. A lot of people are going to say Phillies. I don't hate that. I'm going a different route, partially because it's more fun. I think he makes a lot of sense in Boston.
Yeah.
They loved him there the short time he was there. I could see him going back there. Schwarber is interesting. There are so many places I could see him landing. I could see him landing on almost any contender that's not the Dodgers or the Yankees.
Yeah.
Because the Dodgers and the Yankees both have like obvious DHs that are going to play.
Right.
I could see him in Boston. I could see him on the Cubs. I could see him back on the Nationals, Mike. I mean, I could see him going a lot of different places.
Yeah.
Almost anywhere in the league. Like, I've heard the Pirates want to make a run at him.
Yeah.
I almost wrote down the Pirates for him just for fun. But ultimately, I'm landing on the Red Sox. What do you think?
He's going to have a massive market. Ultimately, again, I'm boring. I do think he goes back to Philadelphia. To me, I just think he's another one of these guys where like it just fits, right? Like Kyle Schwarber in Philly just makes sense. It always did. It does now still. I think Philly is going to want to keep him pretty heavily. I think he likes it there. I think they love him there. That market's going to get big. The Phillies are going to have to spend their money somewhere. I think Schwarber makes sense there, but like I said, I think there's going to be virtually every team in the league that's going to be in on him. Almost every single team in the league. So I really think that there's a possibility that he goes elsewhere, but for the sake of argument, I think Kyle Schwarber more than likely, I think ends up back in Philadelphia. That's kind of the feeling I get.
I mean, I agree, but that's boring.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, we expect from me. You want me to be entertaining? I don't do that. Let's go to Pete Alonso, Dalton. So a lot of talk about him potentially leaving the Mets. Listen, he had that kind of dispute with the Mets last year in the offseason. What do you think happens with the polar bear?
I think he stays with the Mets. If he were to leave, this could be the guy that the Angels make a run at. It just feels that way.
Just say F you to Nolan Shonowell and then just stick him at first base every day.
He's the kind of player Artie Moreno loves. Like they'd figure it out. But no, I think he goes back to the Mets.
Yeah, I felt more confident about him going back to the Mets once the Mariners signed Josh Naylor. I was like, all right, so there's a suitor off the board. And even then, like it really felt like the Mariners were going to try and bring Naylor back. Pete Alonso he's a Met, dude. Like, I don't know how else to say. Like, Pete Alonso embodies New York Met. I can't see him in any other uniform. I feel like it would feel weird if he were in any other uniform. I've heard the Red Sox a bunch. I mean, listen, it makes sense, right, with the monster and everything, but I don't know. To me, it's Mets or bust with him. It really is. That's just kind of the feeling I get.
Yeah. Also, for the audience, that was the last player that I have going back to where he is now.
That I'm gonna love. Well, I mean, I'm not, because you're not gonna have a Yankee on there, but I'm gonna like it as a generic baseball fan, I suppose. So yeah, boring a little bit, but Pete Alonso back to the Mets. I can't see him in any other uniform. That's just me. Bo Bichette. Let's go to him. Kind of a resurgent year for him in Toronto. Obviously making a trip to the World Series. Missing all of the postseason except for the World Series, but not short of big moments, Dalton. So, Bo Bichette, you said he's not going to the Blue Jays. Where's he going?
You ready to get a little wild, Mike?
I don't know what that means. Depends.
I think he changes positions and switches to second base.
Okay.
This is the move the Dodgers make that pisses everybody off.
Okay.
I think he would fit that lineup incredibly well. I think
that eighth or whatever, but
I don't know about that, but I think the Dodgers would love to put him at second base. This is when I'm just getting a little wild, Mike. I'm just throwing some shots in the dark out there. Out of these top 20 guys, because Robert Suarez we kind of had outside the top 20, this is the only signing I have them making. Yeah. And I think it's a splash. I think it's Bo Bichette.
That's interesting. Listen, if that does happen, I mean, is that almost as bad as Kyle Tucker? It's got to be almost as bad as Kyle Tucker.
I mean, I don't think the Dodgers are. I'll put it this way: I think Kyle Tucker's market reminds me a lot of Bryce Harper's market a few years ago, where I don't think the Dodgers are going to give him the length he wants, and I don't think they like him as much as what he's going to get paid. So I don't think the Dodgers are very in on Kyle Tucker. But
okay, well that's interesting. I do think Bo goes back to the Jays.
Probably, but that's boring.
Yes, it is. I do think it's likely that it happens. I think this is going to be their top priority. I think he'll end up going back there. They'll find a way to spend their money. I think they'll outbid everybody to get him back. Bo Bichette's been pretty vocal about him wanting to stay in Toronto. I think it makes a whole lot of sense.
I'll put it this way. If you and I were like betting something here on who's going to get more of them right, I would have said the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. I'll leave it that way.
But it's boring.
Yeah.
All right, we're down to the top 5 names, Dalton. Let's go back to a starter. We've only got 2 starting pitchers left. Let's go to Ranger Suarez. Again, musical chairs here with starting pitchers. What do you think happens with Ranger Suarez?
Yeah, I mean, I have this hat, but I don't have it at my desk with me. John does math. Ranger Suarez to the Western Michigan Whitecaps. Man, that would be something.
That would be.
So there's a team that has said they're going to spend some money that doesn't usually, that I think could really use a good left-handed starter in their rotation. And it's the Pittsburgh Pirates. I could see Ranger Suarez signing in a place like Pittsburgh, being their number 2 behind Skeens, slotting into that rotation with him and Keller, and at some point Jared Jones and Bubba Chandler. I think they need a lefty, and I think he would fit well there. That would be a really good rotation. The lineup is still ass, but that would be a really good rotation. I don't know. It's also, again, Mike, we've talked about this a couple different times. I could see it. Like, I could picture him in a Pirates uni.
Yeah, you can make the case that makes sense. I think if the Pirates are going to spend money, it'll probably be in their lineup rather than their rotation. I agree with you.
That would make way too much sense. The Pirates don't make decisions that make sense.
You're right. It would. This is where I have the Cubs making their splash. I think the Cubs have the money left, have the money that they could have given to Kyle Tucker. I don't think he's going to go back. But I think the Cubs end up adding a relatively big name pitcher. Ranger Suarez goes there, adds to a rotation that brought back Imanaga with Tyone, with Justin Steele. I think that's, they're going to have a rotation there that's pretty legit. Ranger Suarez adds to that. They need to get back into the top of the National League conversation, right? They don't want the Brewers to win this division anymore. So I think the Cubs want to get kind of back into owning the NL Central, getting back to the top of that division. I think Ranger Suarez adding a little bit more to that rotation helps them do that.
The reason I chose Zach Gallen for the Cubs instead of Ranger Suarez or Framber Valdez, though, is with Imanaga and Steele, it's already lefty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think they want a righty, but it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Well, and that certainly makes sense. Let's go to our last starting pitcher, by the way. We just brought him up, Framber Valdez. Listen, I think you and I are kind of on the same page here. We don't think he's going back to the Astros. Left-handed starter, probably the top starter on the market right now. Where do you have Framber Valdez going?
Yeah, I think he makes a lot of sense for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah.
I think Toronto is going to be aggressive this offseason because they saw how close their current core already is.
Yep.
And in this world I've created where Bo Bichette leaves, they have even more money to spend. I think they're going to throw a whole bunch of it at Framber Valdez, slot him right into a righty-heavy rotation, right in between Trey Savage and Kevin Gaussman and Jose Barrios and whoever else. I think this makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. It definitely makes sense. Something I could totally see happening. Before I throw my prediction out, do you think it's possible that the Blue Jays invest in both? Like, do they spend the big money on somebody like Valdez and also bring back Bichette?
Yeah, totally possible.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. And I guess that's part of my thinking is that I didn't have them signing a big, like, I do think they're going to bring in some starting pitching. I don't think it's going to be of the big name ilk, but I could totally see that happening also if they just want to go full bore. If you caught it before, I mentioned that I thought the Mets were going to have a very busy offseason. I think they go and sign Framber Valdez. I think they really need to try to fortify their pitching staff. That was the weakness of their team last year, was starting pitching. The pitching lab obviously was not as good as they needed it to be with a lot of their guys that they brought back with Manaya and Montas and all of those guys. Valdez to the Mets, I think, makes a ton of sense. I think if it comes to a bidding war and they really want him, they'll go get him. He'll fit right at the top of that rotation. It'll give them sort of an ace kind of player that they don't have at the moment. I think it also supplements that rotation with a lot of the younger guys they're going to have coming up with McLean and Jonah Tong and those guys. So that's what I think they do. But I think they double dip. I think they're going to grab Valdez and they're going to grab Merrill Kelly or some sort of other veteran to get into that rotation as well, since that was their weakness last year. So I think they go big name hunting for a pitcher.
Sure. Yeah, I could see it. I mean, look, like we've talked about it a lot with these pitchers, right? Like a lot of it's just, there's a list of about 12 teams that I think a lot of these pitchers could land on. So I'm not going to object to too many of these choices.
Right. Let's go to Alex Bregman. So turning down the option to stay with the Red Sox, he now enters free agency again, signed with the Red Sox late in last year's offseason, caused the problem with Devers, ends up getting traded, all of that stuff. Alex Bregman, what do you think happens?
Again, this is one where the most likely result is he goes back to Boston, but I'm here to make an entertaining show. And I think the other place that made sense for him last year still makes sense for him this year, and it's going back to the Tigers. I say going back to the Tigers, I mean going back to AJ Hinch with the Tigers. You talked about their need for a cornerback earlier when we talked about Eugenio Suarez. I was kind of nodding my head in agreement, but this is why. It's because I think they're going to go after Bregman, and I think he would be a big boon to that lineup. I could also see him going back to Houston, honestly.
Yeah.
I can see him making sense a few different places, but I think the Tigers kind of fit really well here.
Yeah. Yep. It totally makes sense. Would not surprise me at all. Sorry to be boring. I don't know, man. I see it as a fit. I think he loved his time in Boston. The Red Sox obviously loved him. He had a good year last year with the Red Sox. I think it's likely that he ends up going back. Again, sorry to be boring, but that's just the way it is, man. It makes a lot of sense for him to go back.
Very good chance.
So Alex Bregman to the Red Sox for me. Dalton has him going to the Tigers. Let's go to, these are the last two free agents, maybe the two guys, and they kind of, piggyback off each other. And it'll be kind of a cat and mouse game of who signs first. But let's talk about Cody Bellinger. Okay. Had a great year last year with the Yankees. Kind of found himself again after leaving the Dodgers. He found himself again going to the Cubs. And he still has been over the last few years a pretty up and down player, but very good year for the Yankees last year. Listen, you said you didn't have anybody re-signing at this point, right? So now you have the Yankees losing Cody Bellinger. Where does Cody Bellinger end up?
I mean, again, I want to reiterate, it would not surprise me if he ended up back with the Yankees at all. And I'm guessing that's probably where you're going to go, but I won't spoil yours because I don't know it yet. Mm-hmm. This is a really intriguing name. I think he fits a lot of places. I do think there is some genuine mutual interest between him and the Dodgers. I think Boris came out and said it earlier today that he would be interested in rejoining the Dodgers.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Dodgers pull the trigger on that. I would love it. I think he'd fit really well with what the Dodgers currently are.
Yeah.
So I'd love it. But Ohtani announces that he will play for Team Japan in the 2026 World Baseball Classic. Shocker. News that just came across here. I've got Cody Bellinger actually, though, going to the Blue Jays.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And this is where, hey, yeah, they're letting like in my world, they let Bo Bichette walk. I think they spend some of that money on Cody Bellinger. And I think he would fit really well on that team. I think that George Springer having to play a little bit less defense if he's even back, right? I don't know. Like, I just think Cody Bellinger in that lineup, it's another player that's got a lot of speed. It adds more pop. It adds another left-handed bat to a lineup that's got some really powerful right-handed bats.
Yeah.
I think it fits.
Yeah. No, it certainly does. Especially if the Blue Jays miss out on Kyle Tucker, who I know that they're interested in as well.
Yep. Totally see that too.
Yeah, 100%. And listen, to me, the Yankees have outright said that he's the priority. I think it's very possible that it goes. And I think we're going to talk about Kyle Tucker next. I think that you could maybe even interchange these next two as far as destinations, even though I don't really see the Yankees going full bore for Tucker. But Bellinger, I think, obviously liked playing in the Bronx last year. The Yankees obviously loved having him. He filled a really big role for them, gives them a little bit more versatility, even with Trent Grisham is accepting the qualifying offer. I think it gives them a little bit more flexibility in that respect. The lineup as currently constituted certainly isn't good enough if you're going to fill that spot with Jason Dominguez or Spencer Jones. So I think Cody Bellinger is somebody that the Yankees would love to have back, and they're going to do a lot to try to keep him.
Yeah, again, like all these incumbents are certainly probably the leaders in the clubhouse in a lot of these cases. So,
yeah,
if we're playing the game of like all I care about is getting it right, I'd probably pick more incumbents than I am.
Yeah.
But Cody Bellinger to the Blue Jays makes sense to me. Cody Bellinger to the Yankees makes sense to me. Dodgers makes sense to me. Phillies makes sense to me. A lot of places make sense to me for him.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. All right. Let's go to the big fish. Kyle Tucker. Obviously the biggest free agent on the market as of this moment. Could he get $400 million? Right? Like that's about the question that a lot of people are asking right now. What exactly does his market look like? Who's going to end up winning that sort of sweepstakes? General consensus is that he doesn't end up back in Chicago. So where does he go? Dalton, Kyle Tucker, who lands the big fish?
This is something that I would not enjoy at all as a Dodger fan, but I think the Philadelphia Phillies are Kyle Tucker. Dave Dombrowski does not want to lose again in the postseason. He wants a World Series in Philadelphia bad. I think that they will spend what they need to for Kyle Tucker, even if it ends up being a little bit of an overpay, especially if Kyle Schwarber were to leave for the Red Sox. I also think there's a world where they keep both.
Right.
But you think about Kyle Tucker adding to that Phillies lineup, oh man. And in that ballpark,
forget it.
It'd be pretty scary. He smells like the big fish the Phillies go for this offseason. Just smells that way to me.
Yeah. Well, listen, you said it felt a little bit like Bryce Harper.
Yep.
Right. And as soon as you said that, I kind of felt like I knew where you were going. Kyle Tucker for me was one of the last when we were making this list. He was one of the last ones that I predicted because I genuinely don't have a good answer. I could see him going to the Blue Jays. I could see him going to the Phillies. I think the Yankees are going to be interested, but it really depends on whether or not they value Tucker or Bellinger more. So I don't know who I feel confidently about for Cody Bellinger. You said it before. It's a lot like when you make these predictions, it's a lot like putting puzzle pieces together. And this is just what it led me to believe. I think it's probably the Dodgers. Now, again, I get what you said about you don't know if the Dodgers like him as much as he's going to cost. Probably agreed. Like I don't know that that's this is the right answer. I said before that, like, I'd be willing to bet a whole lot of money that Edwin Diaz ends up back with the Mets. This is not something I'd bet money on. Like, I have no idea where he's going. If you're asking me right now, again, what I feel most confident in, I don't know that I'd be able to tell you. I've heard so many different places tied to Kyle Tucker as far as, like, okay, the Blue Jays right now are the leader in the clubhouse. There was a report that said, well, I think the Yankees would probably be more willing to wow him than the Blue Jays. Then I heard, well, their priorities, Bellinger. The Phillies, though, they're going to go after somebody. I have also heard, though, that the Dodgers are going to be, like, if the Dodgers genuinely want him, they'll make the effort to get him. That's just kind of what led me to this. Putting the pieces together, listen, I didn't have the Dodgers spending big money on this list yet. I think the Dodgers, right, if you're asking me to make a prediction right now, today, it could change tomorrow. If you're asking me to make a prediction right now, today, given everything else that I think is going to happen, Kyle Tucker to the Dodgers makes a little bit of the most sense to me.
I would love to see Kyle Tucker in the Dodgers lineup. From what I've heard, if that were to happen, because he's projecting what, 10 years, 400 million, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know that he's going to get to 400. If you're asking me, like, what I think, I don't know that he's going to get to 400 million, but yeah, around there, yeah.
Right. I think if he goes to the Dodgers, the annual value goes up.
Years go down.
Some money gets deferred and years go down. So, like, for example, I could see the Dodgers saying, hey, we're not going to give you 40 million a year for 10, but we'll give you 55 million a year for 5.
Right.
And saying, hey, let's go 275 million over 5 years. Let's defer 75% of it. So you're getting paid over that full 10 years, right? But let's win you a couple rings, come here, for 5 years, finish, for all extents and purposes, right? Like, finish your real career here. I don't think Kyle Tucker wants that. I just don't. Like, yeah. I think Kyle Tucker, like, with where he's at in his career, is that he's kind of in a similar place that Bryce Harper was, where, like, I mean, at 28, you want to cash in. Now, the Dodgers' argument to him could be, hey, you are still going to be able to make a lot of money at 33. And player contracts are only getting bigger. If you combine this 275 from us over 5 years, plus the next 4-year deal you're going to get after that when you're 33.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, if he stays productive, that's about what he'd get, right? 4-year deal, 3-year deal somewhere.
Sure.
They might make the argument to him of, like, we're going to pay you 55 over the next 5 years. You'll get to defer some of that, so you get paid it later on, which is a good thing in a lot of players' eyes.
Yeah.
And let's say after that, with the way contracts inflate over time, right, he might be able to go back and say, okay, now I'm going to sign 3 years, 120 somewhere else. And now he's getting that 40 million a year still. Oh, but now in 8 years, he's made $415 million or $405 million.
Right.
The money that he was projected to make over 10 years. That would be the Dodgers' argument to him. That's very similar to what the Dodgers' argument was to Bryce Harper when he ultimately chose the Phillies. The Dodgers said, hey, half the years, but we'll pay you more. Come win here.
Right.
I don't think it's an argument that is going to win. I don't think it's an argument that has 0% chance of winning either.
Mm. Yeah. All right. So that does it. Those are the predictions. What? sorry to be a little bit more on the boring side.
Well, I'll say this. I think for the Dodgers that part of the reason I don't have them going that crazy in free agency, like even Bo Bichette's a long shot, right? I think there's a real chance. Like when I first went through those 20, I didn't have anybody going to the Dodgers. Not one. Yeah. I only had maybe Robert Suarez. I think the Dodgers' actual splash will come on the trade market. Like most of the smoke with them is they have so many top outfield prospects that they don't even know what to do with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they can call a team like the Guardians and say, hey, Guardians, you want Josue de Paula and Zaire Hope and a pitching prospect for Cade Smith and Stephen Kwan, I think they'd listen. I think that's a likely type of trade. I think they call the Cardinals and they say, hey, Cardinals, you want maybe not those top guys, but you want a couple of our prospects with good pedigree for Brendan Donovan. I think that probably happens.
Yeah.
And I think you see the Dodgers continue to add solid players where all of a sudden on opening day, you've added Brendan Donovan, Stephen Kwan, you've added Robert Suarez and Cade Smith to the bullpen, and you go into next season, because you still have the whole core, right? You still have Betts, Freeman, Ohtani, Teoscar, Muncy. These guys are all back.
Right.
So, I mean, the funny thing with the Dodgers, I can't think of a team that in the last 10 to 15 years, really, I can't think of a team that's won the World Series and then you look at the list of the top 50 free agents going into that next offseason, none of them are coming from that team.
Yep. Right.
That's pretty scary if you're a fan of any of the other 29 teams.
Mm-hmm. Gotta say, man, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't have the Yankees doing more. I really am. And I get it. I get where you're coming from, but I'm disappointed.
It wouldn't surprise me if they do a lot more, but I'm taking Hal at his word a little bit. Like usually when owners say that they're going to cut payroll, it's because they're going to cut payroll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. All right. That does it for us. Thanks for everybody in the comments section. Always a ton of fun. The Cody Bellinger Rancho Cucamonga Quakes legend, by the way. John Desmath's been on fire in the comment section. Alex Bredman to the Binghamton Rubble Ponies, which is in the Mets organization, by the way. So again, a lot of fun today. I always just like making predictions, throwing darts at the board.
Yeah.
Seeing what sticks. We'll maybe revisit this, see how many we actually get right. But as for us, that's Dalton Brown. I'm Mike Guido. This is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast. I don't know. We'll be back at some point, right? Stepped in, made a couple predictions, maybe come back by the winter meetings ish.
I was going to say, I mean, I could see winter meetings reactions, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, we'll figure it out. And then before you know it, we'll be making predictions for next season.
That's certainly right. We'll be previewing rosters, making predictions, all that good stuff. Make sure you stay tuned for us. Again, Mondays, 8 o'clock Eastern, during baseball season at the very least. But stick with us again. Stick with the grid for the offseason. We'll see you soon.